and realize that this world pagan religion, even predating the gods of Olympus, is now back. And Francis is basically the single greatest purveyor of that false religion.
Well, Father, perhaps that can lead nicely into the next topic we wanted to discuss in the second half of the program. In the news a lot we hear about climate change, and this question of the environment seems to dominate almost a lot of other things.
Well, actually, there were actually newscasters and those who actually news editors who made it very clear that once the COVID scare passes, the next one will be climate change. Now, we've got to go on to that, and we've got to induce fear so as to induce control over people because of climate change. So they made it very clear that was where they intended to go with this. It's all orchestrated.
But Father, what should Catholics, what should traditional Catholics think of the environmental movement as a whole? It's relatively new, it seems, or at least in its current form. But obviously, this on the surface seems like a good thing to take care of the creation that God has given to us, not to spoil it, not to ruin it. On the surface, this seems like a good thing. What should Catholics think of the environmental movement?
Well, the environmental movement as it is
today.
Yeah, I think it should be looked upon as a scam, and simply has been co-opted by the leftist as their cause, as a cause to gain control over the world's population. The argument of reducing the population, all the manners of birth control, whether it be the pill or homosexuality, promoting that among peoples, the transgender movement and all the rest, they're all about attacks on human life, okay? And I think the current environmental movement is another form of that, attack on human life. The environmental movement today is actually more than just a movement, it's a religion. They're turning it into a religion. In fact, the former head of the Vatican Bank, at the time that Archbishop Vigano was overseeing the Vatican finances, his name was Ettore Gotti Tedeschi. He said that this is the future one world religion. This is why, after COVID, they have to keep beating the drums for this environmental Gnosticism, because that has to become the one world religion.
Mm-hmm. Well, Father, you say this is anti-human life. It certainly isn't sold to us that way, because we constantly hear, that we must take care of the environment because of human life. We want human life to flourish, to have our best lives here, and we have things going on like climate change, which is going to destroy the climate to make the planet uninhabitable for us.
But it's not for human beings. Human beings are looked upon as the enemy of the climate. Human beings are looked upon as the enemy of the earth. We are the polluters. We are the problem. We are the ones, they say, who are causing climate change. And it's because there are too many of us, and many of us just have to go away. I mean, they don't talk about the Georgia Guidestones. I suppose most of these environmentalists don't even know about them. But the fact is they're very significant. In Georgia, the Guidestones, the very first provision made there is that the population of the world must not exceed, 500 million people, period. That's like a commandment of the new age. That means that a lot of billions of people have to die. We have to go away. They have to make us go away. How are they going to do it? Famine and disease, pestilence, of their own making. These are all contrived. These are programs they're undertaking because they can afford it. They have the resources now and the control over the resources of the world that they can actually kill off millions of people. And there are certain billionaires today who have made no secret about that this is actually desirable. Bill Gates among them. So in any case, no. If the idea is that we are the enemies of the earth, and the earth is not here created by God to serve us, human life. We are here to serve the earth. We're here to serve the goddess, the earth. We're here to serve this world. It's a total inversion and perversion of what we read in sacred scripture, that God created this world to be our home and our service, right? And we are meant to be good stewards of the world. Now, unfortunately, there's a certain appeal that has to, people, Catholics, who have the idea that, yes, we're responsible, so we have to take good care of the earth. We do. we have a responsibility to God, right? And polluting the world and so on can actually be sinful. That's true. Damaging what God has created, it can certainly be sinful. It's kind of interesting to see that so many of these environmentalists are dyed-in-the-wool abortionists too, right? It's okay to destroy human life, right? Actually, it's just doing the world a service by destroying human life, because human life is the enemy. So no, they're not concerned about human welfare and the goodness, the happiness of human life, except perhaps their own. But they do look upon our species as kind of a gigantic weed or parasite that has to be severely cut back.
Yeah. Is there any truth at all to that, though, Father? Because we see in very large cities, there's terrible air pollution sometimes, and if you kind of multiply that out, and we have more and more people in the world, plus more and more bigger cities, we would see more and more pollution, and the air quality as a whole would go down. The environment would become a worse condition.
Right. Well, again, Tom, I say the movement has been taken over. That doesn't mean the idea of the environmental idea is a bad idea. The idea of sustainability is not a bad idea. It's a very human, commonsensical sort of thing to use the resources of the world for what is literally, truly, in the traditional Catholic way of understanding, the common good of mankind. But the problem is that the enemy, like the leftists, can see this cause as an opportunity for them to gain more and more control. And the problem, as I say it, is not just is not against the idea of taking good care of the environment. We have an obligation before God to do that. I admit that. I acknowledge that. All Catholics acknowledge that. We have an obligation before God to take care of His creation. But we also, I think, have to face the reality that the devil can appear as an angel of light, and like the communists can come in and they can see an opportunity and decide to use this to their advantage, to gain control over whole populations, even over the whole world. And ultimately, what is happening now, and I think Ettore Gotteschi is right, that they're trying to make it a religion and the foundation of a one-world religion with earth worship. Tom, I don't know that everybody makes this connection. There are people who recognize the environmental movement as now having fallen under the control of quite godless and inhuman people who want to use it to gain dictatorial, tyrannical control over the human race. And many of the same people would say that they disagree with the introduction of pagan idols, the Pachamamas, into the Vatican. The worship of Pachamama in the Vatican gardens, right? During the October 2019 Amazon Synod, the carrying of the Pachamama into St. Peter's Basilica, the invoking of certain prayers led by Francis, with its ceremonies of Pachamama, and then carrying the Pachamama idol triumphantly to stand before the Synod, right in front of where Francis was sitting, right? That Pachamama is right there in front of where he is, and all those who are in attendance are actually looking at him, toward him, supposedly, but Pachamama is right there in front of him. All of these things are a statement. There are those who would condemn the introduction of pagan idols into the Vatican, or anywhere else for that matter. There are those who would say the environmental movement has been compromised by leftists. But I don't know that people are making the connection between the two of them. And there's an intimate connection between those two phenomena. Francis bringing the Pachamama in, the earth goddess, for worship, and the environmental movement are intimately tied together. Francis Laudato Si, talking about environmentalism and caring for the earth, and then the introduction of an actual earth goddess idol for worship. These two things actually go together. I mean, they're part of the same program. Francis's Laudato Si, followed by the Pachamama idol. It's all part of the earth goddess world worshiping mentality that Francis is bringing in with him to basically foster not only one world government, but a one world religion. And Francis is essentially their point man in getting this done. And he's going to be their point man in trying to move the Catholics away from traditional Catholic belief to the acceptance of the worship of the earth and the one world religion of Gaianism, Gaia, the earth goddess. And Pachamama is part of that program to justify this worship in the name of environmentalism. You read those documents that were published for the Amazon Synod, right? There was, first of all, a draft document that was produced for the Amazon Synod to consider. There was another draft of it that came out, right? There was a Corrida Amazonia, I think, a document of Francis that came out afterwards. And all of these documents are just absolutely dripping with personification of nature. Like the Amazon is the great mother womb, and the rivers flowing through it giving life. And I mean, all of this is animism. It's all that native pagan religion. The whole thing is couched in those terms. It's impossible to read these documents without getting almost, as a Catholic, sick to your stomach to realize he's actually promoting the religion of animism, the old pagan religion that saw, spirits in the jaguars and spirits in the turtles and spirits in the snakes, Pachamama. And, all of nature is animated by these idol spirit forces, of which you and I are a part. I are among them as one of them. And, people, unfortunately, they read these things and they say, this is very alien to the Catholic faith. This is very strange. It gives me the creeps. But they really need to read them in context and realize that this world pagan religion, even predating the gods of Olympus, is now back. And Francis is basically the single greatest purveyor of that false religion through the Vatican. And the Pachamama business is actually part of that overall program of promoting, he's got environmentalism, but again, he wants to give it a religious foundation. And the Pachamama is actually the religious part of that foundation of environmentalism that comes through the Vatican. Because, as I say, that's his mission to complete the work of Vatican II, to actually lay the groundwork and start the impetus toward the one world religion, the worship of the world, and to see ourselves simply as part of the world and nothing more.
Mm-hmm. Well, Father, it certainly makes sense why leftist politicians would promote this cause, because, as you say, it helps them gain power and dictatorial control over people. But what does Francis and the Novus Ordo Church stand to gain by pushing this? This seems to be one of the driving themes of Francis's papacy. He created the new work of mercy, the care of creation or care of the environment. And he wrote the encyclicals about it and seems to talk incessantly about the environment. What does Francis and the Novus Ordo Church stand to gain from this? Are they just that demented, that perverse, that they just want to totally destroy any kind of semblance?
The objective is the destruction of traditional Catholicism. But you see, they have a certain animosity toward God as we know him in our traditional Catholic faith. They don't like that God. They want a different God, and this will be a God of basically their own creation. Archbishop Vigano recently came out with a statement saying that the Freemasons are using the Vatican to promote their one world order now. Okay? And so, I mean, this plan has been at work for a long, long time. It's called the mystery of iniquity. And the Masons have talked about this very openly, seizing the papacy for the sake of promoting their own Masonic idea of what religion is. It's basically a technologically savvy paganism. Okay, it's a kind of a reincarnation, if you will, or a replay of the ancient paganism, now with a technological ability, power behind it. And they feel that they can do it now because the technology enables them to surveil everybody, read their minds, they think, and control them. Absolutely. The entire population of the world. I mean, Harari has actually come out and said that. Now we have the power to do what the tyrants in the past only dreamed of doing. Okay, now we can do that. And his point is, now we have to do that. Now we should do this. And go away with the idea of a God in heaven. We are the new gods. We are going to create humanity according to our own scheme, which they say is going to be a digitized humanity. Okay, human techno, basically, essentially just a glorified robot, that they programmed as their servants, so as their slaves. So it's not a matter of what they stand to gain. They're motivated by a real malice toward, well, as Francis says, look what he said. In last week's program, we talked about that, the Restorationists. I mean, he has a real malice toward these people. He says the Restorationists who still cling to the Council of Trent, they are the enemy, they are the obstacle, they are the problem. We have to overcome them. We have to stop them, right? And overcome them so that everybody adopts Vatican II and stops looking to the Council of Trent. As I mentioned last week, he was actually saying, in so many words, that Cardinal Ottaviani was right. In 1969, Cardinal Ottaviani, with Cardinal Bacci and 40 Roman theologians, issued a letter, an open letter to Paul VI, and a critical study of the new Mass. This is before it came out, right? A critical study of the new order of Mass that was about to be issued by the Vatican. This is what people see now essentially going on in their modern churches right now, under the name of Catholicism. And Cardinal Ottaviani made the statement multiple times that the new Mass has no intention of standing for the doctrines of the faith as taught by the Council of Trent, to which the Catholic conscience is bound forever, he said. Catholics are bound forever to believe that the doctrines of the Church as taught at the Council of Trent. And Cardinal Ottaviani said that the new Mass had nothing to do, had no intention of standing for that, of representing that faith. He said rather the new Mass actually was calculated to please the most liberal of Protestants and represented a different faith, essentially. Actually was much in accord with, well, they didn't use the word modernism, but he described what the new Mass represented, and that was it. Okay, it wasn't the Catholic faith. He said in there that so much was this is the case, the Council of Trent the new Mass rejecting the teachings of the Council of Trent, that if the Vatican was going to impose the new Mass, it would create a crisis of conscience among the Catholic people, especially the most devoted and faithful Catholic people would be put in a terrible position of being forced to make a terrible choice. That's what he said in 1969. Go back and read the Ottaviani Intervention. It's all right there. And here's Francis now. He comes out, and to these journalists and the publishers, editors, and so on of these Jesuit periodicals, Jesuit magazines, he's saying that the Restorationists, those who want the traditional Mass and traditional sacraments and the traditional doctrines of the Church, are the big obstacle. They are the big problem facing the Church right now. And because they look back to the Council of Trent rather than the Vatican II. Now, what could be more blatant an admission that Vatican II and Council of Trent are mutually exclusive of each other, that looking to the one excludes the other. As though that's the choice that Cardinal Ottaviani was talking about in 1969. So I think Francis, in his own Franciscan way, whatever, I wouldn't say Franciscan, Francisian, maybe would be a better term, because of his whole swishing around and the whole idea that he keeps appointing all of these princesses of the church as cardinals, that he actually has come out and told everyone, yes, you have to make a choice between the Council of Trent and the Vatican and our Vatican II. But Francis was was chosen by the modernists for that very purpose. He was chosen for the very purpose of realizing the promise of Vatican II and basically finishing the work of Vatican II, the demolition of the traditional faith, and the replacement in the hearts and the minds of human beings with the one world religion of exactly what Mr. Tedeschi, Signor Tedeschi said. Signore Tedeschi talked about environmental Gnosticism, maybe Gnostic environmentalism, whatever they say, but that's the new religion. Mm. And right now the prime emblem of that is Francis's Pachamama.
Mm-hmm. Well, Father, practically speaking, how should a traditional Catholic act in regards to this manner? Because obviously we don't want the animism or paganism that or the one world religion that we're talking about here, but we do, as we established, we do in fact care about the environment. We do care about the creation that God has blessed us with. So practically speaking, what does that mean? How do we act? Should we be doing things like recycling and buying electric vehicles?
We have to be sensible enough to not be deceived by the false. I mean, if you talk about environmentalism, Tom, I mean, you have the ISM on the end, which is like a belief system. Catholicism, Bolshevism, right? Communism, socialism, they all kind of are belief systems, okay? As soon as you just talk about environmentalism, you raise it to the level of kind of a belief system, and again, you kind of present it as some kind of a ersatz religion. So we have to absolutely reject environmentalism, okay? We have to always relate all of these questions to our Catholic faith, and we realize we do have an obligation to take good care of God's creation here. And that means not to poison it, not to pollute it, not to abuse it. I mean, when we were kids in school, we had, you know, the kid next to us who liked to pull the wings off flies or the legs off spiders. And, you know, we always, maybe some of us who weren't doing that thought that was a little peculiar and a little creepy. And realize you just don't do that to a living thing and enjoy it, you know. There's something wrong with that. Well, there's something wrong with just a wholesale polluting of the nation, polluting of the world. There's something wrong with big pharma right now. There's something very wrong with Food Incorporated right now. And these major corporations are taking over the necessities, you know, production of necessities of life. The worst form of socialism, where the great corporations are controlled by a handful of people who also control the politicians. There you bring together the economic production with the power of government, and this is the formula for the worst form of tyranny. And that's what we've got. This is what we're facing right now. So, I mean, look, the very people who are behind this environmentalism are the ones who are pushing all this evil stuff right now. So you can see that environmentalism for them is not actually a matter of right and wrong. It's a matter of policy, and it's a matter of actually imposing tyranny and gaining control over the whole world. We have to reject their environmentalism as a religion. We have to, as Catholics, be responsible for ourselves and see, well, you know, we are required to take care of things. Remember the old days when parents would say, or the sisters in the classrooms would say, you know, you should not waste food. You should think about those in the world who don't have any. And so you should be careful not to waste food. And not only that, but they had us contributing our quarters during Lent for the, you know, for the missions. so that they could obtain food. No one has been greater in dealing with the acts of charity than the Catholic man, woman, and child in the course of history. But the idea of taking care of things is a very Catholic idea. Going back hundreds of years, centuries and centuries, Catholic children were taught, to economize, always economize. Turn the lights off when you leave the room. Don't let the water run, just run indiscriminately. And we were taught this just because it's not a matter of religious environmentalism of saving the earth. We were taught that because it's irresponsible. It's simply irresponsible. It's imprudent. It sets a bad example. It's wasteful. It's wasteful. And we were always taught that being wasteful is wrong, is morally wrong. We were taught that being wasteful is against charity, and it's something that we would even find necessary to confess if we were really wasteful of something good that would be a benefit to somebody else, and I'm just wasting it. We always were taught we had responsibility for that. And how did they get us off of that training from our own parents to environmentalism now, where we are at the service of serving the earth and preventing the earth from being wounded, because the earth is now being wounded by us, and the earth is reacting against us and punishing us, right? By the things that happen to us. The earth is convulsing now because we're wounding and hurting her. I mean, what kind of mythology is that they put in the place of a simple lesson that children learned to, be frugal, not to waste, be considerate of others, to be generous and help, and not to poison the world around them. That's not environmentalism. That's just Catholicism. So we have to think like Catholics in all of this. I do think we have an obligation not to poison the world. Tell it to the major corporations who've made billions of dollars poisoning the world and selling us products that poison us, and then selling us products to try to offset the poison, and then selling us products to offset the poison that is caused by the other products. On and on and on it goes. I'm not an expert on television, but I go through the airports a bit, and I do hear things, and I see a pattern that it just seems as though half of the commercials are for medications, pharmaceuticals, this new latest medication that will treat you for high blood pressure, low blood pressure, that will treat you for stroke symptoms, that will treat you for heart arrhythmia, whatever they've got going out there. They'll treat you for diabetes, they'll treat you for you name it, right? Half of the commercial is about the latest, greatest new pill or medication or treatment that they've got out there. And the other half of the commercial seems to be for lawyers suing for the damage done by the latest, greatest medication procedure of 2 years before. It's like a 2 years lap time. If you were injured by this medication, or you were injured by this procedure, this mesh for this particular affliction, and so on. I won't go into the details there. But the point is, then call us right now, and we'll tell you what your case is worth. I mean, is it my imagination? I don't know that you're a television aholic or whatever. Do you see what I mean?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. The latest, greatest medication that can cure you of what ails you. And then they tell you all the things it can cause. Take this medication for depression. Caution, might cause depression.
Yeah.
Right? Or suicidal thoughts, along with a myriad of other problems. And then 2 years later, you're going to have the lawyers all over the airwaves offering to sue the companies that produce these things because of all the damage these things did to people. And this is the kind of vicious circle they've got us in right now. This is what, and when we return to the question of environmentalism, that's all very much part of this. It's all part of this big cycling. In fact, I'd say that is the big picture of all of this. And all of these things are elements of that. Mm-hmm. Why? Why would one say that environmentalism is the big picture, and all these other things are all like subsets of that, or contained within it, because I think the environmentalism is actually going to become the one world religion. That we are products of Mother Earth, children and sons and daughters. Well, you can't even say that anymore. We are offspring or whatever of Mother Earth, and all glory, praise, and honor go to Mother Earth. And this is where we're going. You know, and I have to see Francis's Pachamama as part of the picture, playing into that whole picture. You're familiar with a novel by Monsignor Robert Hugh Benson, The Lord of the World, right?
Yes, well.
Well, there's a high point in the novel where the Antichrist, Julian Felsenberg, has his acolyte, remember that? His master of ceremonies for the worship of the Mother Goddess. And you know his name, Mr. Francis. He's an apostate priest, right? Mr. Francis is orchestrating the worship of the Mother Goddess. And the scene from the novel portrays this gigantic statue of this female figure, completely unclothed, but reigning as some kind of a Greek goddess. And the little figure of Julian Felsenberg calling out to this as its mother, you know, its goddess, and its creator, his creator, and he's there at the great service, the Antichrist, of this figure. You know, it would really be worthwhile for people who have any real interest in all this to find that book, or at least to go to that part of the book. You can find it online. Actually, it's online, and to actually seek out that scene. I think they'd find it very well. I think they'd find it very interesting, especially in light of what we know now and where we expect they're going with this. So, environmentalism as such is a false religion. It is an anti-Christ and anti-Christian religion, and it is, I think, Mr. Signore Tedeschi is absolutely right when he makes this very sage prediction that it is destined to be, it is sort of earmarked to become the world religion. And Francis is very much a prophet of that religion.
Well, Father, thank you for that. I appreciate your time. Appreciate all of your insight tonight.
The solution to all of this is what it has always been, Tom: traditional Catholicism, practicing the traditional Catholic faith. It's the one thing that Francis wants to stop. He wants to put an end to it. It's what the Masons want to stop. It's what all the enemies of God want stopped. It's what the powers of hell want stopped. They want the traditional Catholic faith, its Mass and its sacrament, with their justifying and sanctifying powers. They want that stopped. Okay? And so what we need to do is, well, recognizing not that they want it stopped, but they want it stopped because they hate God who wants it, who gave it to us, who entrusted that to us, the faith, hope, and charity of Christ, that we have to be faithful to God in all of this. We have to reject the false religion of environmentalism. We've got to be, and by the way, look, I even consider abortion to be a part of that whole world religion. Yeah. Of anti-human life, as though human life is the scum of the earth and the polluter of the world. And PETA, I think, even PETA kind of even hints at that. You know, a rat is a pig, is a boy. That's all the same. There's no real distinction between the two of them. It all is of a piece there. And the one thing that stands against all of that is our traditional Catholic faith. So you asked, well, what should we do? Practice your traditional Catholic faith. Do what your traditional Catholic faith tells you to do. And in terms of common sense with regard to the things of this world, don't be wasteful. Conserve these things out of respect for God, because this is God's creation. Not out of some worshipful mania for some mythical mother goddess of the world, Pachamama. Don't worship that. Worship the true God and do what you do out of love and respect for the true God.
It's the one true religion versus the one world religion.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, Father, thank you for being here tonight and appreciate your time and everything that you do. God bless you.
Certainly, Don. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thanks to all of our viewers as well for watching this episode of What Catholics Believe. Until next time, we ask that you all remember the words of Our Lady at Fatima, to consecrate yourselves and your families to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and to pray and do penance. Thank you, and God bless you.